As of tonight, March 17, 2026, there is a growing realization inside governments around the world that something is no longer working the way it used to, not on paper, not in speeches, but in reality. Because while official statements continue to project confidence, coordination, and control, the actions being taken behind closed doors tell a very different story. A story of hesitation, a story of recalculation, and most importantly, a story of uncertainty. Earlier today, a closed-door meeting between multiple high-level officials ended without a unified position. There was no joint statement, no shared conclusion, no clear path forward, and in diplomacy, silence like that is never neutral. It means something went wrong. According to one participant, the discussion inside that room was not focused on strategy. It was focused on limits. That distinction matters, because when leaders begin discussing limits, they are no longer asking what they want to achieve, they are asking what they can survive. One source described the tone of the meeting in a way that stood out immediately. He said, "There was no disagreement about the risks, only disagreement about who should carry them." That single sentence explains the hesitation we are now seeing across multiple governments, because the risks are no longer theoretical, they are immediate. They are measurable, and they are potentially irreversible. At the same time, intelligence assessments are becoming noticeably more cautious. Language that once suggested confidence is now being replaced with probabilities, scenarios, and contingencies, and when intelligence language shifts like this, it usually signals one thing: the situation is becoming harder to predict. One analyst put it bluntly: we are no longer operating on a defined path, we are operating within a range of outcomes. That uncertainty is shaping decisions at every level, from military planning to economic policy to diplomatic engagement. And those decisions, while they may appear inconsistent from the outside, are actually highly calculated responses to incomplete information. But uncertainty does not exist in isolation. It spreads, it affects markets, it affects alliances, and it affects perception, which brings us to the economic dimension of what is unfolding. Because while governments debate strategy, markets are already reacting. Shipping routes are being altered, insurance costs are rising sharply, investment flows are shifting towards safer regions. And industries that depend on stability are beginning to prepare for prolonged disruption rather than short-term instability. One senior executive in the energy sector summarized it clearly. He said, "We are no longer planning for recovery, we are planning for endurance." That shift in mindset changes everything. It means companies are no longer expecting a quick resolution. They are preparing for a drawn-out period of uncertainty. And when the private sector begins to think long-term, it often means they believe the public sector is behind. Meanwhile, political leaders are facing increasing pressure at home, not just from opposition parties, but from their own institutions. Questions are being raised about timelines, about objectives, about exit strategies, and those questions are not being answered clearly, because the answers themselves are not yet clear. One minister admitted during a briefing, the situation is evolving faster than policy can adapt, and when policy lags behind events, the result is hesitation, followed by overcorrection, neither of which leads to stability. On the international stage, something even more significant is happening. Smaller and mid-sized nations are beginning to shift their strategies quietly, but deliberately. They are exploring new agreements, forming new partnerships, and in some cases, building entirely new frameworks that do not rely on traditional alliances. One diplomat captured this shift in a single line: "We are not choosing sides, we are choosing flexibility." Flexibility in this context means independence, independence from pressure, independence from expectations, and independence from the risks that come with alignment. This is how global systems begin to change, not with a dramatic announcement, but with a series of quiet decisions that gradually alter the structure of relationships. At the same time, military activity continues to evolve, not dramatically, not explosively, but steadily. Assets are being repositioned, forces are being placed on higher alert, and contingency plans are being updated in real time. One defense analyst noted that current deployments do not align with the original timeline, which suggests that either the timeline has changed or the objectives have expanded. Neither possibility is reassuring, because both introduce uncertainty, and uncertainty increases the risk of miscalculation. For now, the situation remains controlled, but the margin for error is shrinking as more actors become involved and more decisions are made under pressure. The likelihood of a mistake increases, and in an environment like this, even a small mistake can have significant consequences. A particularly revealing moment came during a televised interview earlier today. A former official was asked whether the current approach is sustainable. His response was immediate: "Sustainability depends on alignment. Alignment depends on trust. And right now, trust is being tested. That is the core issue, because without trust, coordination becomes negotiation, and negotiation takes time, time that may not be available. At the same time, public messaging continues to emphasize stability, progress, and control. But those words are beginning to lose their impact because they are not being matched by visible outcomes. And when messaging and reality begin to diverge, trust erodes, slowly at first. And then all at once, we are now entering a phase where narratives are beginning to fragment. Different actors are presenting different versions of the same events, each tailored to their own interests, each designed to shape perception. And once that fragmentation begins, it becomes extremely difficult to restore a single, shared understanding of reality. One regional leader captured this perfectly when he said, "Stability is not something you declare, it is something others believe." Right now, belief is in short supply, and that matters because power in the modern world is not just about capability, it is about perception, and perception is shifting rapidly. While all of this is happening, alternative conversations are accelerating beneath the surface. Countries are initiating direct talks, bypassing traditional channels, exploring options that would have been unthinkable just months ago. One analyst summarized it in a way that is both simple and profound. When systems stop delivering outcomes, actors within those systems begin building new ones. That is exactly what we are seeing now. New pathways, new agreements, new understandings, forming quietly but with purpose. And every new agreement reduces reliance on the existing system, which gradually weakens it. This is not a sudden collapse. It is a slow transition, a shift from one structure to another, and those shifts are often difficult to recognize in real time because they do not happen all at once. They happen step by step, decision by decision, adjustment by adjustment, until eventually the old system no longer functions the way it once did. And by the time that becomes obvious, it is often too late to reverse. So the question now is not just about what happens next. It is about who will shape what comes after. Will the current system adapt? Will it regain alignment and restore trust? Or are we witnessing the early stages of something entirely different? Something less centralized, less predictable, and far more fragmented. Because if that is the case, then the implications go far beyond any single conflict. They affect global trade, global security, and the balance of power itself. And that brings us to the final point. Moments like this are rarely recognized while they are happening. They are usually understood in hindsight when the patterns become clear, when the outcomes are visible. But occasionally, there are signs, signals, indicators that suggest something larger is unfolding. Right now, those signals are everywhere, in the language being used, in the decisions being delayed, in the strategies being reconsidered. The only question that remains is this: are those in positions of power fully aware of the shift that is taking place? Or will clarity come only after the outcome has already been decided? Because by then, it may no longer be a question of what could have been done, but what cannot be undone.